Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Battle Through the Heavens based on novel. So let's start. The thunder-like cry carried some do-chi as it reverberated through every single corner of the Gyoma sacred city. Countless numbers of people raised their heads at this moment. They threw their gaze in a certain direction. The rising do-chi, there was just like a surging sky pillar. Yafei, Hai Budong, and the others from the Prima clan rushed out of the hall. Their expressions were solemn as they observed the spot where do-chi had erupted. What do we do now? Prima Tingshan asked in a deep voice. What else can we do? Since we don't wish to surrender, we can only fight to our deaths. Hai Budong coldly snorted. A faint, cold air lingered around his body. Under the cover of this cold air, the deep blue color in his eyes also became much darker. Everyone listen up, guard your posts securely. Do not panic. There is no need to report if anyone intrudes. Just kill. Yafei's pretty face was ice cold. Her eyes contained an evilness as her cold cry spread throughout the entire Prima clan. Hai Budong nodded slightly as he watched Yafei transmitting the command in an orderly fashion and swiftly stabilized the somewhat panicked situation. He immediately narrowed both his eyes and coldly studied the spot where do-chi had erupted. Both of his fists under his sleeves were slowly tightened. Old Roan Yunshan. Since you want to destroy my Prima clan, the old me will injure your bones and let you bleed. While the members of the Prima clan were solemnly waiting, an orderly stern cry was suddenly emitted from the spot within the Gyoma sacred city where the do-chi had erupted. Everyone in the city immediately saw a large group of white-robed individuals surging out in all directions from a certain spot, before bounding and rushing above the buildings of the city. When the white robes fluttered in the wind, the special cloud sword image on it allowed one to identify them as people belonging to the Misty Cloud sect. Hiss. It is unexpected that the Misty Cloud sect actually sent over so many people. It seems that he really wants to eat the Prima clan in one bite. Quite a number of people inhaled a breath of cool air as they looked at those white robes which were rushing over buildings like fleas. There was immediately some pity and indigent thoughts given out. The Misty Cloud sect was really too arrogant to attack with such fanfare. The entire capital became like a boiling pot of oil when the white-colored torrent surged by. It completely turned into an uproar. Countless numbers of people also leaped onto the roofs and remained a great distance behind this torrent. Finally, they stopped just as their eyes were able to see the Prima clan as they looked for a place with a good view to begin watching this big event that was the most sensational one in the Gyoma Empire within the last century. The three large clans of the Gyoma Empire had been established in the empire quite a long time ago. During these years, the three large clans had become increasingly stronger, and an ordinary clan would have difficulty surpassing them. The Misty Cloud sect's attack on the Prima clan was undoubtedly a collision of the greatest scale that had occurred within the Gyoma Empire in the last couple of decades. The hearts of quite a number of people were filled with curiosity with regards to such a collision between the strong. Hence, before the Misty Cloud sect's white torrent had arrived at the Prima clan, some of the surrounding tall areas were already filled with black masses of human heads. Big Brother Xiao, you should hide in a corner if a fight were to break out later. Yafei looked at the white-colored wave that was sweeping over from the distant before turning her head as she reminded Xiao Ding, who was seated in a wheelchair. What is the use of hiding in a corner at that time? Moreover, do you really think I am really that kind of person who is too weak to fight? Xiao Ding smiled and shook his head at Yafei's good intention. He immediately raised his hand and an unusual rich green do-chi that was filled with life swiftly surged out and covered his fist. Huh? You have advanced to a do-ling. When did this happen? Hai Budong by the side was immediately startled when he saw the aura that Xiao Ding suddenly unleashed, and he asked with some surprise. Since I am unable to feel my legs, I can only quietly train. Hence, my progress is quite good, it is just that I usually do not unleash my Do Chi so everyone is unaware of it. Xiao Ding smiled as he replied. It is good that you have the ability to protect yourself. If the situation turns for the worse later, you and Ya Fei should seek an opportunity to flee. It is not a wise decision for all of us to die here. If that is the case, even if the Primer clan is totally exterminated, there will be someone who will seek revenge for us in the future. Hai Budong nodded as he suddenly whispered. Xiao Ding and Ya Fei were startled when they heard Hai Budong's words. They were about to say something when the former's expression became completely solemn as he said, "They are here, the two of you should command the interior of the mansion. I will lead people to block the people from the Misty Cloud sect." Hai Budong spoke to Ya Fei. His feet immediately pressed on the ground and his body shot to the sky. Behind him, Primer Ting Shan hurriedly let out a loud cry after seeing this. After which the numerous strong clan members of the Premier clan followed closely. Finally, they flashed and appeared on the exterior of the mansion, facing off against the large unit of the Misty Cloud sect. Hai Budong's body was suspended in mid-air. His shoulders shook and a pair of ice Do Chi wings were extended out from his back. Both of his wings were flapped to keep him in the air. Both of his eyes contained an iciness as they looked at the white-colored wave of the large Misty Cloud sect's unit. Powerful Do Chi surged out from his body. Following the flow of Do Chi, a majestic aura shrouded the sky. And an unusual pressure covered a radius of 100 meters. Given Hai Budong's Do Huang class strength, the aura that he unleashed not only caused some commotion within the large Misty Cloud sect's unit, but the numerous observers on the surrounding tall buildings also let out waves of exclamations. Being one of the few elite Do Huangs that one could count with one's fingers within the Jioma Empire, Hai Budong's reputation had once again recovered to a level similar to his peak back then. Hai Budong, don't bother putting up a resistance. Are you actually thinking of turning the tide with your own strength? If you are sensible, you should quickly hand over the remaining members of the Xiao clan. Two sharp cries suddenly erupted from the city, just as Hai Budong's aura surged. Immediately, two auras that were comparable to the former suddenly appeared. The rushing sound of wind quickly followed when these two auras surfaced. Finally, two rays of light drew through the sky in front of a countless number of gazes, and eventually appeared in the air outside the Primer clan. The two people who appeared also had an elderly appearance. They wore white robes with drawings of clouds. The two powerful auras were clearly emitted by these two people. The two elders from the Misty Cloud sect, who had suddenly appeared, also attracted gazes from all over the city. This was especially when they sensed the pressuring feeling that was faintly released from within the bodies of these two people. Some shock surged in the hearts of quite a number of people. These two people were actually all elite Do Huangs. Since when had two additional Do Huangs appeared in the Misty Cloud sect? Hai Budong's eyes were focused intently on these two people after their appearance. This was especially when his gaze swept toward the faces of the two of them. His heart was immediately greatly shocked. Old Hai, these two old fellows were at most 4-star Do Huangs 3 years ago. How could they break through to the Do Huang class in 3 short years? A human figure flashed toward Hai Budong. Sighed. It was Primer Tingshan. At this moment, his face was also filled with disbelief as he looked at the two people in the distant sky. Hai Budong's expression was gloomy. He narrowed his eyes as his gaze swept over Yundu and Yunsho. A moment later, he shook his head and said, "The aura of these two aren't quite right. Although their aura might appear to have reached the Do Huang class, their breaths are far inferior to the mellow and natural feeling of an elite Do Huang. I think that Yunshan must have used some strange secret technique to forcefully raise their strength. What should we do now?" Primer Tingshan hurriedly spoke. Even though Yundu and Yunsho were not true elite Do Huangs, it should not be difficult for one of them to delay Hai Budong. The remaining person was clearly going to be extremely difficult to stop given his strength. Moreover, once those Misty Cloud sect's disciples outside were to unleash an attack, it was likely that those experts within the clan would not be able to hold out for long. What else can we do? Don't tell me we should surrender at such a time. Hai Budong frowned and coldly reprimanded. He immediately spoke in a deep voice. I will try my best to kill one of them as quickly as possible. After which, I will help you kill the other person. As long as these two leaders are killed, we need not be afraid of the other Misty Cloud sect's disciples. Prima Tingshan laughed bitterly. They could only do this given the current situation. However, even if they were defeated today, they would be considered to be honorably defeated in front of the eyes of so many people. Hai Budong, I will ask you once again. Are you going to hand over the people today? Yun Shou's gaze was dark and cold as shouted while he glanced at Hai Budong and Prima Tingshan, who were suspended in the sky above the mansion. The actions of the Misty Cloud sect these few years has really shamed all of your ancestors. Is that old Ron Yun Shan not afraid that his ancestors will come after him to settle the score? Hai Budong laughed and ridiculed. Yun Shou and Yun Du's expressions also completely sank when they heard this. The two of them raised their hands in front of the countless number of gazes. An instant later, they suddenly swung them down. A cold cry that was filled with killing intent also resounded across the sky as their hands fell. Misty Cloud sect's disciples, listen up. Today, we will bath the Prima clan in blood. Dense, cold sword auras suddenly surged from the white-colored torrent of people as the cries of the two people sounded. It blotted out the sun and covered the entire city. The moment Yun Du's cry sounded, the Misty Cloud sect's disciples, which had completely surrounded the Prima clan until nothing could pass through, immediately carried a sharp sword aura and charged toward the enormous mansion like a tiger that had just descended from its mountain. The cries of killing intent that instantly erupted caused the faces of the many surrounding observers to become pale. Kill. A clear, cold cry also resounded just as a countless number of Misty Cloud sect's disciples swarmed toward the Prima clan like flood water. Immediately, one could hear the sound of bows being strung throughout the mansion. A moment later, countless arrows tore through the air, transforming it into raining arrows that swarmed over the white-colored torrent. The raining arrows quietly blocked some of the attacking momentum of the Misty Cloud sect. However, soon after, countless clusters of bright Do Chi surged and the effects of the arrows were greatly diminished. Using this momentum, that white-colored torrent moved much closer to the mansion. Some of the faster people were already in close proximity to the mansion itself. Yun Fu. Yun Shu. It is really unexpected that even the both of you have come. Prima Tingshan's heart immediately sank when he saw the sudden appearance of these two people. These two people were also elders from the Misty Cloud sect. Although they were not as strong as Yun Du and Yun Shou, they were still experts of the Do Wang class. From the looks of it, the Misty Cloud sect had really put in the capital in order to deal with the Prima clan. Sect leaders' patience with your Prima clan has already reached the limit. Hence, don't blame us. We are only acting on orders. These two people seemed to be acquainted with Prima Tingshan. Hence, there was a helplessness in their faint voices. Prima Tingshan's face was dark and gloomy. His eye looked in the direction where Hai Budong was located. Yun Du and Yun Shou had already approached the latter while Yun Fu and Yun Shu had blocked him. The three powerful auras from their bodies caused the Do Chi in his body to be unable to circulate smoothly despite him being some distance apart. An elite Do Huang was indeed far from what an ordinary Do Wang could compare with. You should be careful. I will deal with these two people. You should just take care of yourself. While Prima Tingshan was worried about Hai Budong, the latter's deep voice had been transmitted to him. Prima Tingshan could only put down the worry in his heart when he heard this. His gaze turned toward his opponent in front of him. With a flip of his hand, a powerful Do Chi surged out from his body. His strength might not be comparable to Hai Budong, but it was not something that should be underestimated. Sorry to offend you. Yun Fu and Yun 11 did not dare to slight their opponent as they sensed the energy ripple that had already erupted from Prima Tingshan's side. They cried out toward Prima Tingshan, before immediately flapping their wings. Turning into a black shadow, they rushed toward the latter. Prima Tingshan looked at the two human figures rushing over with gloomy eyes. A pride that had not appeared for many years also surged within his heart as he laughed to the sky. All right. Today, even if our Prima clan cannot escape this calamity, I will also severely hurt your Misty Cloud sect. Great-grandfather, are we really going to do nothing? A tall, young lady in a purple gown, who was standing behind the linen-robed old man, with a somewhat stern look on her pretty face, finally spoke. After being unable to resist any longer while watching the great battle in the distance. Looking at the purple gold phoenix crown on her head, that represented her status, it seemed that her status was quite high. Yao Yi, you should also know just how strong the Misty Cloud sect currently is. If we were to anger that old Rongyun Shan, the linen-robed old man sighed as he replied. Yao Yi, this tall, elegant woman who wore a purple gold phoenix crown on her head, was surprisingly the elder princess of the imperial family whom Xiao Yan had met a few times back then. But great-grandfather, you should also know just what kind of wild ambition the actions of the Misty Cloud sect these couple of years have contained. We might still be able to contend with them if we were to join hands with the Alchemist Association and the three large clans. However, if we were to sit back and watch them be eliminated by the Misty Cloud sect one at a time, it is likely that our imperial family will eventually end up with the same fate. At this moment, this female emperor, who was already gradually starting to manage the entire empire, knit her eyebrows and spoke somewhat anxiously. Jiao Lao was silent in the face of Yao Yi's sharp words. That Yun Shan was ultimately a heavy rock that was pressing on his heart. He clearly knew that it was likely not very difficult for that old roan to kill him, given the former's strength. Once he died, the imperial family would lose his protection. At that time it was likely that the danger that faced them would likely be even greater. Hence, it was still extremely difficult for him to decide even in the face of such a crucial moment. Some helplessness and disappointment flashed across Yao Yi's bright eyes when she saw that Jiao Yao was still acting so indecisively at such a moment. She lifted her eyes and looked in the direction where the Prima clan was located. She could only pray in her heart that the top of the three large clan could create a miracle and survive this attack by the Misty Cloud sect. An old man wearing an alchemist robe looked at the spot where energy was exploding with flickering eyes on the roof of a building in the Alchemist Association. He would occasionally tighten and relax his fist. Clearly, his heart was not calm. Chairman Fa Ma, another elderly man behind this old man, who was also wearing an alchemist robe, could not help but open his mouth to speak. Fa Ma, who also had some relationship with Xiao Yan back then, was still managing the Jioma Empire's Alchemist Association 3 years later. Let's wait first. Fa Ma shook his head slightly as he spoke with a hoarse voice. The old man behind could only sigh softly when he heard Fa Ma's words. The core members in the Nalan clan were also standing on a tall building looking at the fight that had erupted in the distance. The person who was standing in the leader's spot with an uncertain expression was naturally the strongest person within the Nalan clan, Nalan Jie. Father, this matter, Nalan Su revealed a solemn expression as he softly spoke behind Nalan Jie. Wait. Nalan Jie tightened his old face. It was a long while later before he spat out this word. He similarly did not dare to offend the enormous being known as the Misty Cloud sect. Although Nalan Yangran was also a member of the Misty Cloud sect, not only had Yunyun been placed under house arrest but Nalan Yangran had also entered the so-called Gate of Life and Death. There had been no news of her for 3 years. Even he did not know whether she was dead or alive. Hopefully, the Misty Cloud sect will let our Nalan clan off on account of Yangran, Nalan Su bitterly laughed as he quietly spoke in his heart. However, at that time, the dignity of the Nalan clan would be completely lost. A similar hesitation and struggle was also enacted in the Mu clan, which was one of the 3 large clans. However, the final conclusion was that not a single person dared to step forward and say something at such a moment. This was because they knew that on the Misty Cloud mountain located in close proximity to the capital, there was still an elite Dozong who had the strength to eliminate any clan, Yun Shan. At such a moment, all they could do was place their hope on a miracle. If the Prima clan was able to endure this, the other few factions would have the courage to discuss a collaboration with them by relying on the momentum of this victory. While the Prima clan and the Misty Cloud sect fighting entered into a white-hot state, over 10 enormous flying magical beasts were swiftly rushing through the sky over 100 kilometers from the Jioma sacred city. A force that would shake the entire Jioma Empire was about to arrive. After a couple of rounds of charging and killing, the Misty Cloud sect's disciples had endured a couple of waves of counterattacks by the Prima clan. The true close combat collision erupted the moment they began to charge into the outer yard of the mansion. Although the Misty Cloud sect had recruited a large number of disciples during these few years, they were naturally unable to train them into very strong individuals within a short period of time. The Prima clan, however, was different. Most of the clan's guards were elites who had been specially trained for many years. Hence, even though they were outnumbered when the close-range fight erupted, the Misty Cloud sect could only fight in the outermost part of the manor regardless of how wildly they charge around. They had difficulty charging into the inner part of the manor. At this moment, this enormous manor was impregnable under the tight defense of the Prima clan. Although the Misty Cloud sect had come charging menacingly, they were still repelled outside of it. The external surroundings of the manor had already been completely turned into a bloody meat grinder. Knives and swords came and went. Sharp miserable cries sounded incessantly. Fresh bright red blood scattered in all directions. It dyed the tall manor walls into looking as though it was covered by a red curtain. A pungent bloody scent slowly spread before diffusing throughout the city. Prima Tingshan was not concerned about Yun Fu's cry. He turned his head and his gaze looked to the battle circle of Hai Budong. At this moment, the fight at that spot was even more intense than the area he was currently in. Blurry human figures flashed in the sky, emitting earth-shaking energy ripples when they occasionally collided. Although an ordinary person had difficulty clearly observing the fighting situation, Prima Tingshan was able to clearly see it. At this moment, the fight between the three people might be extremely intense, but it was still somewhat difficult to tell who would end up victorious. Although Yundu and Yunsho's Do Huang's strength was not very pure, their strength would naturally be multiplied since the two of them had joined hands. Moreover, it was not the first time that the both of them had collaborated, as shown by how their collaboration was very much in sync. In fact, they were able to maintain a situation where they were not losing despite their individual strength being much weaker than Hai Budong's strength. At this moment, the fight between Hai Budong and the other two had clearly entered a white-hot stage. Any activity in the outside world was unable to distract them. Their eyes only watched the other party's flashing figure. It is really unexpected that Yundu and Yunsho have already become so strong that they are able to avoid being defeated when fighting Old Hai. Prima Tingshan's heart sank slightly when he saw the situation where it was difficult for a victor to be decided. From the looks of it, Old Hai might need quite a long time in order to defeat those two fellows. Moreover, the situation on his side was not favorable. If he were accidentally defeated, Yun Fu and Yun Shu might well enter that other battle. At that time, the situation might well become one-sided. After an intense battle in the sky, Prima Tingshan was unable to block Yun Fu and Yun Shu as he had intended. Instead, the two of them had seized the opportunity, while he was momentarily distracted, to unleash a truly heavy blow. Prima Tingshan's face turned pale, as he received the complete force of Yun Fu's and Yun Shu's attack. A mouthful of bloody fog was involuntarily spat out in front of a countless number of gazes. His body had also swiftly descended and was only received by a member of the Prima clan, who had reacted quickly just before he hit the ground. First Elder Jiao Lao's gaze was firmly watching the one-sided battle in the sky from the tall tower of the imperial city. His shriveled right hand under his sleeves emitted a cracking sound. An instant later, however, when he recalled the frightening fellow in the misty cloud sect, Jiao Lao's body once again became feeble. His face had become much older at this moment. He really did not have the slightest confidence to defeat that old roan within the misty cloud sect. If he were to intervene and help Haibodong today, it was likely that the misty cloud sect would turn its blade on the imperial family tomorrow. Yao Yi, who was wearing a purple-black gown while standing behind Jiao Lao, was also looking at the battle in the distant sky. The back of her teeth clenched tightly on her lower red lip. She knew in her heart that once Haibodong was defeated, the Prima clan would have completely lost its ability to resist today. This leader of the three large clans in the empire would be completely eliminated. Once the Prima clan was destroyed, who in the empire would dare to step forward and contend with the Misty Cloud sect? Since they would become more arrogant because of this, Haibodong is about to lose. Suddenly, Jiao Lao began to slowly speak with bitterness. He gradually shut his eyes. In the future, this Jiao Ma empire would belong to the Misty Cloud sect. Yao Yi's entire body turned ice-cold as she looked at the scene in the sky. This Prima clan was completely finished today. Soon after, it would likely be their turn. The entire city was completely silent. The fist aura in the sky, which contained the combined strength of the four people, completely wrapped around the city. That feeling of pressure caused one's pores to open wide. Suddenly a clear whistle rolled over from afar, while a countless number of people were absent-minded. The whistle was initially extremely vague, appearing intermittently as though it did not exist. An instant later, it suddenly arrived and thundered within the entire city like a thunderclap from the heavens. This thunderclap roar caused the fist aura of Yundu and the three others that had enveloped the entire city to immediately fall apart. Jiao Lao, who had originally shut his eyes in despair on the tall tower, suddenly opened his eyes at this moment. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked in the direction the roar had come from. An aura that caused even him to feel somewhat pressured at that location was drawing through the air and heading over at a lightning-fast speed. Moreover, the thing that caused his heart to suddenly billow was that this aura had a familiar feeling to it. Jiao Lao was startled for an instant. His eyes suddenly widened as his body trembled with great force, because of his excitement. Even his voice carried a quivering tone. This aura is him. That fellow, has that fellow really returned? Naturally, Jiao Lao was not the only one who had discovered the sudden arrival of the clear rolling thunder. At the same time, the few leaders who possessed quite a strong faction within the empire revealed stunned faces as they looked in the direction the roaring sound had come from. However, other than the head of the Alchemist Association, Fa Ma, the other people did not possess sharp senses. Hence, they naturally had difficulty identifying the person who had arrived. Even though this was the case, the majestic Do Qi that was contained in the roar caused their expressions to change drastically. This kind of strength was something that even the old demon Jiao Xingqian in the imperial city could not be compared with. Since when had such a strong person appeared in the Jiao Ma Empire? The couple of them were not the only ones who had gained such questions. Everyone in the capital was completely stunned. Clearly, there was not a single person aware of just when an expert, who possessed such a strength, had appeared in the Jiao Ma Empire. The clear roar was just like thunder that rolled and arrived. Doubt had flashed in everyone's heart when silver-colored lightning suddenly rushed over from outside of the capital. The speed of this silver-colored lightning was so fast that it was frightening. Even the few elite Do Wangs could only vaguely see a silver glow flash and disappear in the sky. A storm brewed within their hearts. The silver glow rushed across the sky. It shot from outside to inside the city within a short instant. Finally, the glow flashed and a human figure, which was completely covered in a jade-green flame, appeared in the battleground in the sky in a ghost-like manner. The spot he was occupying was surprisingly in front of Haibodong. Only after that eye-catching jade-green fire figure appeared in the sky did the people all over the city below let out an alarmed cry. From the looks of the situation, it seemed that the clear roar a moment ago was emitted by this mysterious person. Moreover, from the spot in which he was standing in, it seemed that he was here to help Haibodong. Although it took some time to describe it, only a short 2 to 3 seconds had passed from the sounding of the clear roar to the appearance of the mysterious jade-green fire person in front of Haibodong. Due to the frightening speed of the latter, the ferocious fist of Yundu and the three others, accompanied by fluctuating air, still violently approached after he had appeared in front of Haibodong. The appearance of the jade-green fire human figure instantly caused Haibodong's face to become stunned. He moved his body only to discover that Yundu and the three others lock on him had unknowingly been undone. He was startled for a moment before immediately coming to an understanding. This was an act done by the mysterious person in front of him. However, at this moment, he naturally did not have the time to inquire about the other party's origin. He could only cry out loud, "Friend, be careful of their attack. You actually dare to meddle in the Misty Cloud sect's affairs. You are seeking death." The sudden appearance of the jade-green fire human figure also caused Yundu and the others to be startled. However, they quickly discovered the other party's intention and their faces immediately turned gloomy. The moment the cold cry sounded, the aura of the fists that had the combined force of the four of them immediately soared. The humming sound of sharp rushing wind resounded across the city, causing one's eardrum to feel a wave of piercing pain. The attack, which had gathered the full strength of two Do Huangs, and two Do Wangs, had a power that even Jiao Tian could only afford to dodge. However, that jade-green flame human figure remained in the sky. His expression was solemn, but he did not move. From the looks of it, he seemed to be intent on receiving the attack from the four people head-on. Numerous exclamations immediately sounded from the city below when they saw the actions of his was this fellow who had suddenly appeared, not overextending himself. It should be known that his opponent was not an ordinary strong person, but two Do Huangs and two Do Wangs. They were strong people who even Ice Emperor Haibodong could only back away from. This was not only the case for the ordinary people below. Even the expressions of Haibodong and those experts who had been observing this place from certain spots in the capital changed slightly when they saw the actions of this mysterious person. From the looks of the frightening speed that this person had displayed earlier, it was clearly not difficult for him to dodge this attack. However, he still chose to receive it head-on. If one did not have absolute confidence in receiving it head-on, one was a fool to do this. Would such a strong person be a fool? The answer was obvious. No. The sharp fist glow that had gathered the full force of Yundu and the three others burst air apart within a 10-meter radius and formed a vacuum region under the countless number of gazes from the capital. That terrifying glowing fist rushed toward the jade-green fire figure with a speed that was difficult to sense with one's naked eye. The air fled in all directions wherever the fist glowed past, causing this space to appear extremely distorted. The jade-green fire person finally reacted when the terrifying glowing fist was about to approach his body. His fist was slowly extended out. Finally, the bones in his arm trembled and a frightening force swiftly agglomerated within an extremely short period of time. Finally, it suddenly erupted amid a low and deep cry. Octane blast. Both fists shook and suddenly collided in front of a countless number of tiny eyes. Everything was momentarily still before a thunder-like explosion suddenly resounded across the sky. A wind ripple immediately swept in all directions like an ocean wave. The fists separated upon contact in front of numerous gazes. The flame human figure swayed a little before withdrawing a couple of steps in order to resolve the force. Yundu and the other three on the opposite side were like sandbags that had been sent flying in the shocked eyes all over the city. They flew back by over 100 feet before they stabilized their bodies in a somewhat miserable manner. The sleeves on their hands were immediately blasted apart when they stood up, revealing their naked arms. Clearly, Yundu and the three others not only failed to gain the advantage in this collision, but they were even miserably defeated under the fist of the mysterious man. The entire city was completely silent at this moment. Regardless of whether it was the manor of the Prima clan, which was filled with fights, or any other place, everyone was looking at the sky with stunned faces. The scene a moment ago gave them a kind of dreamlike feeling. Crushing a joint attack by two Do Huangs, and two Do Wangs with one's own strength. It was likely that only Yun Shan alone possessed such a strength in this large Jioma empire. Yet, it was extremely obvious that this mysterious person was not Yun Shan. In that case, just who was this mysterious expert, who was completely wrapped within a flame? At this moment, there were countless number of people who were draining their minds trying to guess the identity of this mysterious person. Unfortunately, their efforts were to no avail. Hai Budong also revealed a stunned expression, as he looked at the flaming human figure not far away. Although he could guess that the strength of this person was quite strong, he did not expect that this person was not only able to withstand the combined attack of Yundu and the other three, but also possessed the additional strength to shatter the sleeves of these four people. Such a strength was indeed terrifying. Silence continued in this city for a moment before it was finally broken by Yundu's somewhat sharp, fearful voice. Just who are you? Please tell us your name. After having not met for 3 years, it is really unexpected that the Misty Cloud sect still specializes in bullying others with numbers. The cluster of flames covering the human figure in the sky finally emitted clear laughter. A countless number of people were startled when they heard the laughter from the flaming human figure. Hearing this voice, they were certain that this mysterious person was not very old. An ordinary person might only be surprised at how young it was when they heard this laughter. However, when this laughter landed in the ears of Ya Fei and Xiao Ding, who had lifted their heads in the manner below, it caused the bodies of the both of them to suddenly stiffen. They widened their mouths slightly and slowly turned their heads to exchange glances with each other. A moment later, they were able to see disbelief surging out from deep within the other party's eyes. Being an old man, Hai Budong naturally did not feel anything special toward that voice. However, he was vaguely able to sense a familiar feeling to it. However, he was unable to find any answer despite knitting his brows and savoring it. This friend, don't think that you can act recklessly just because the four of us are unable to do anything to you. There is no one in this Jioma empire who dares to provoke our Misty Cloud sect. Yun Du's expression had become very gloomy as he spoke with a stern voice when he heard the ridicule from the voice of the fire figure. You should reveal yourself if you have the ability. Hiding your head, exposing your tail, and sneaking about is not what an expert should do. The fire figure once again emitted soft laughter after hearing Yundu's cold cry. Immediately, everyone sensed that the jade-green flame that was lingering on his body was slowly disappearing. The city, where private conversations had just broken out, once again became strangely quiet when they saw this scene. Numerous gazes looked at the sky without blinking. Everyone was curious to learn who this mysterious expert was. Of course, it was not only the ordinary people who possessed this thought. Both parties who were fighting within the Prima clan's manor, those in the Imperial City, the Alchemist Association, Nalan clan, Mu clan, the people from all these places were staring intently at the sky with large eyes. The flame on the fire human figure gradually disappeared under the eyes of a countless number of fiery, hot gazes. The skinny figure within it slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Ya Fei raised her pretty face and looked at the somewhat familiar back from the Prima clan's manor. Her delicate hands involuntarily covered her mouth. A fog surged in those bright eyes because of her excitement. It really is him. He has returned. The flame finally disappeared, completely following a slight sound. The black-robed, young man, who was carrying a heavy ruler in the sky flapped the jade-green fire wings on his back as he remained suspended in the sky. It's been 3 years, Misty Cloud sect, Xiao Yan from the Xiao clan has come to collect your debt. The black-robed, young man remained suspended in the sky. His soft laughter slowly reverberated through the sky, causing the expressions on the faces of everyone in the city to completely solidify. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.